And hey, everybody, welcome to the Most Excellent Entertainment Podcast. I'm your host, Keith, and with us this week we have podcaster, advocate for people with autism and who are on the spectrum, as well as a wrestling enthusiast, Mr. Sam Mitchell. Welcome, Sam.
Hey, man, good to be here.
It's good to have you on. So, before we start talking about the podcast, I did want to talk about you are in Indiana, right?
Yeah, I saw we're not that far from each other.
Right. Well, I was wondering how excited you were for the Royal Rumble to be in Indianapolis pretty soon.
Oh, dude, I'm going there.
Yeah, awesome.
I got tickets for it.
Man, I wanted to go, but the tickets are so expensive, and I don't like to sit.
Oh, I know. We didn't
super
get the
high.
best seats in the house, but they were good enough for me. And I was at the point where I told my mother, listen, this is what I like for Christmas. Please,
Yeah,
I don't care what seats we go. I just want to be at this pay-per-view.
sure.
The feeling of being there is enough for me.
Yeah, I went to SummerSlam when it was there a few years ago, and we had $100 seats. So we were like, that was back when you could get $100 seats, but we were a couple rows away from the top of the ceiling. But the atmosphere, and I mean, we got to be there for Taker choke slamming Edge through the mat, and what was it? Batista and John Cena had a
Look, when
great
the fire
match.
came out.
Yeah, but Batista and John Cena had a great match, so we got to see both of those moments, and that was really cool. I actually think that was the match where Batista gave John Cena the top rope power bomb, messed up his shoulder, and he was out for a while after that match. But it was a fun time. So enjoy the Royal Rumble, man. It's a big deal. You got
Oh,
any
I will.
predictions?
Well, not really. I mean, I have a gut feeling Cena is going to win this Rumble this
Oof.
year.
Yeah.
I know. I'm not a Cena guy either.
I mean, I like
And
John
then,
Cena, but
however,
yeah.
and then for women's, I'm just not for sure.
Right. My thing about John Cena winning is I think he's going to get a title match at some point, regardless, during his last year. So give the Royal Rumble win to somebody else. I think the idea of John Cena wrestling for his whole last year and not getting a single title match it's not really in the realm of possibilities. Like I think he'll win Elimination Chamber or something. I hope he doesn't win the Rumble because there's other people who've been there all year working hard who deserve it more, I guess. So, but I think Jade
But
Cargill is going to win the women's. That's my
I can see that. That's
yeah
not a bad prediction.
yeah.
I didn't even
I
think of that, to be honest with you.
I think that this is just me fantasy booking, but I actually have a wrestling podcast, so we talk about stuff like this on there. I feel like Bianca Belair is going to be the one who attacked her, and it's going to be because she doesn't like her and she wanted to team with Naomi. And somewhere along the way, Bianca's going to win one of the two women's titles. She's going to pick up one of the two women's titles. And then Jade is going to win the Rumble. And then the match at WrestleMania will be Jade and Bianca for the belt. That's,
Yeah. We
I
can
mean,
see Bianca be a heel,
yeah,
finally,
yeah. And I think
which
she
I'm
would,
actually intrigued to see her as a heel.
me too. I think her personality and her character, I think it translates well to that. Like anyone
Yeah.
who says they're the best at everything, and that's her gimmick, uh, can always be a heel. Like,
Yeah, and
just
I actually know through NXT, I don't watch NXT much.
right.
I just heard that she was a heel
She
and
was a heel in
wasn't a
NXT.
bad heel. So
Yeah,
I'm
she did a good
actually
job.
intrigued to see where this direction goes, and if that's where the creative team decides to lead off.
Sure. Yeah. I love NXT. I watch it every week. The last couple weeks have been kind of not as good, but I mean you can't be awesome all the time. They put on a really good product though. Um, I'm a pretty big fan of NXT. So yeah, let's get into Autism Rocks and Rolls. What was it that did the website come first, or did the podcast come first, or
I
how did
gotcha.
that come
So
about?
what
Yeah.
I do besides watching wrestling a lot is I run a podcast called Autism Rocks and Rolls. That's a podcast about autism and how he coped with daily struggles that you may or may not understand. Through the podcast, it's grown so much. I have developed sponsors through it, a board of 6 members. I'm also an event planner where in Indiana, which is
Yeah.
where we're both at,
Yep.
and I'm also a speaker. I've spoken in Oklahoma, Orlando 3 times, Canada twice, Stewart, Florida, and Washington, D.C. Spoken about what the behaviors are like when it comes to the autism spectrum. And then I just got done keynote speaking in Daniels, West Virginia.
Wow. That's impressive, man. So how do you network? Do these people reach out to you, or do you do research on people who might
Well, there's some networking involved,
yeah,
but some of it is people find out of me. The Daniels, West Virginia was about me. They just heard about me somehow. I think it was because my association with the Doug Flutie Autism Foundation. They were going to have Doug Flutie, but his prices were gagged up so much they
sure,
decided instead to try me.
sure. And what was the reaction like when you went like to all these different places and you give your talks? How does that usually go?
There's some happiness. There's some tears shed. There's some wow, look at what my son, daughter, or my affiliation person with autism can do
Yeah,
because I never thought of it this way before.
right,
Eyes
right.
get open.
Absolutely. Awesome, man. And that's important because I think with all um I don't even want to call them disabilities, you know what I mean? But with all the things that make people different, I guess, there's a misconception of a lot of it. You know, like I have OCD and I hate hearing people who don't understand what OCD is saying they have it. Like if someone it's more than just liking things a certain way, you know, and it's important to educate people about what it actually means and what being autistic actually entails, you know?
Or what having OCD is like, because if you do
Yeah.
something OCD, like
Yeah.
you get looks at. I
Yeah,
mean,
yeah.
the minute you shake someone's hand, and if you're not like this, because I know some people with OCD aren't,
Yeah.
and I don't know if you are, so if you aren't, I apologize for saying
Oh,
it, but if
you're
you
fine.
are, okay.
Yeah.
But you shake someone's hand and then you use Germex, people are looking at you like, am I that disgusting?
Right.
No,
Sure, sure, sure.
I'm being smart to avoid getting sick.
Yeah. So yeah,
And there's a tick that makes me do this. Shut
right,
up.
right. When I touch other people, I get I feel very uncomfortable. I take medicine so it helps me navigate it, but I do wash my hands as soon as I can after I touch someone or something that I'm unfamiliar with. So I'm not as it's not as severe now that I take medicine, but yeah, that's how I manage it because I couldn't really manage it any other way. And that's actually a good segue into like how do you manage your autism? What are some of the things that you do that help you meet and overcome the challenges that you see every day?
Well, the only reason first of all, I said the OCD one was my familiarization with OCD was I saw on Dr. Phil. There was
Sure.
a female on there who, right after she shook Dr. Phil's hand, she washed her hands and used Germex.
Yeah, yeah, for
But
sure.
the way I manage my autism is it depends on what show we're talking about. A
Uh,
lot of people have asked me that before, and it's just because of the way my brain is. It depends on what area you're talking about exactly. So,
okay.
for example, the anxiety, that's going to be handled a little differently compared to my anger issues
Sure.
or to my tolerance with patience.
Sure.
So, but I can answer my way of patience. The way I handle patience is I try my best to, and probably don't handle it the best when it comes to electronics. That's really my kryptonite.
Mm,
But surprisingly, I'm very patient with other things, such as animals and kids.
okay.
And the anger wise, you don't say a word to me, or you will get screamed at.
Right. Right, right. Well, and I kind of think that that's for everybody, you know. Everybody has different ways to cope with things that trigger them. I think it's kind of known at this point that the whole world has triggers, you know. So I think that we're kind of learning that people with autism and OCD and things of that nature aren't really all that different than everybody else. You know, we all just have our own struggles. So,
Right. It's so stupid though to me too. What's frustrating is you didn't get a chance. Let me explain what I mean by this. So
sure, yeah,
because of when we
absolutely.
got the diagnosed with OCD and autism, we don't get hired or
Right.
we get fired easily. We have to deal with stereotypes.
Yep.
But here's my question. What did we do to earn those stereotypes?
Right.
Or than get a label? Nothing. And to me, that's just you're criticizing us because it's not our fault.
Yeah.
What the heck? How does
Yeah.
that make sense?
For sure. And before there was an understanding of the different mental health issues and developmental issues, people with OCD, people with autism, and things of that nature were just looked at as weird and strange and kind of ostracized a little bit. I mean, so I think that that old mindset still carries over today, but I think that because of people like you who aren't afraid to go out and talk and educate people, that that's changing. So that's awesome.
Yeah, the way I like to think of it is you'll like this analogy because it's with wrestling.
Yeah.
There's some wrestlers out there who are, if they put them into society, you would see them as freaks, right?
Sure. Yeah.
Or weird,
Yeah.
or they're a little different, like Mankind,
Right.
Kane, Jake the Snake, who I've
Right.
had on my show, by the way,
Awesome.
and they would be put in society, and people look at them like, "What's going on here?" And they
Yeah.
would think they're not safe people.
Mm.
I
Right.
say, to a point, BS.
Right. Right.
Because sometimes, yeah, you're right. I mean, look what Kane did. He got set someone on fire.
Right. Right.
But how do we know unless you talk to him? Because outside the ring, and I can say this from meeting him and sources, Kane is one of the most nicest guys you'll ever meet outside of professional wrestling.
Sure.
But you get what I'm trying to say here is you didn't even give Kane a chance.
Right. Yeah. And I actually I work as a home health aide and my client is on the extreme level of autism and he also has bipolar 1 and OCD and PTSD and a few other things. But the thing is we sit down every night and I'm there with him and we watch videos and we talk and I know him as a person. And even though, you know, outside in society, people may not even want to approach him because his level of autism is you can tell he's autistic like from his actions and things.
Oh,
He's not
I can. Yep, I know
yeah,
that. I got some friends that are like that. You can tell they're on the autism spectrum the moment they open their mouth.
right, right. But the thing about my client is if you were to talk to him and if you were to actually give him a chance, he's not going to hurt anybody. You know, he's just a regular guy who has struggles just like everybody else. So I think it's important for people to really see that and really know that. So again, I think you're doing an awesome job going out and talking to people and educating them, man. I love that. So
Well, I appreciate it, but another part of what gets aggravating too is I don't know your client well,
sure.
but if I had to predict, and I'm only saying this because those on the autism spectrum are very talented and can do sometimes things that others can't.
Right, sure.
Is he's probably talented at something,
Oh well he's a
or he does
really good
something
dancer,
that
yeah. Yeah.
we couldn't do.
Right, sure. Absolutely.
Yeah, dancing, like you just said, I can't dance.
Yeah, me neither.
I might dance for fun, but it's not going to
Right.
be good dancing.
Right. Yeah, he's very good at mimicking dances. He'll watch videos and stuff and be able to do exactly what they're doing in the videos. So that's pretty cool. It's not something I could do at all, even close to. So, I did. You mentioned interviewing Jake the Snake on your podcast. I won. You sent a pretty impressive list of wrestlers that you've had a chance to sit down with and talk to. What is that like? Like talking to people who I'm sure you admired and whose work you respect. Like what is that like?
Well, it's a fun time for sure. I
Yeah.
mean, it's kind of cool. You get to see them on television, then they're on your computer screen.
Right.
It's
Right.
kind of a cool experience. And funny part, the way I actually got lots of those, not all of them. Some like Mick Foley, he was through uh, a previous podcast I was on called the AC/DC podcast.
Okay.
Al Snow was through an event in Bloomington, Indiana, which is, not far from me.
Right.
RVD was through Rob Van Dam, who I've had on the show,
Right.
was through Facebook Messenger. Kane was through talking to the office of Tennessee because he's the mayor of Knoxville.
Right. Right. And
But the
that's
others, oh, and Jake the Snake was through publishers.
okay.
But the others, Victoria, Buff, Bagwell, this could be good information for you because it's a good opportunity to connect as well.
Oh, for sure.
In Indianapolis, have you heard of the Square Circle Expo?
Oh yeah, I love Ed. He's a good dude. I've
Oh
hung out with
yes,
Ed. Yeah.
I visit that yearly now. I think my
Awesome.
first one was in very recent, 2022,
Okay.
2021. Yeah, 2022.
Okay. Yeah, I booked Ed's wife on a wrestling show in Indianapolis years ago, and Ed came with her, and then after the Heartland and Wrestling reunion, the first one, we hung out after the show. But yeah, basically Ed and I have met twice in person, but through Facebook we've interacted quite a bit. And yeah, Ed's my buddy, man. Like, yeah, Ed's a
Oh
good
yeah.
dude, and the stuff that Ed does, I don't think people realize. Like, Ed ran Days of the Dead for a really long time, which was the biggest horror convention in the country, essentially. And now he runs Squared Circle Expo, which if it's not the biggest wrestling convention, because you have WrestleCon and stuff like that, it's definitely the biggest one in Indiana for sure, and one of the biggest ones in the Midwest. And they do an awesome job. He gets great people coming in, and he always makes sure that the fans leave happy, which is super important. So
Oh yeah. I met Ed. He seems like a good dude. But what I started last year was I'm now a vendor for the Square Circle Expo to
awesome,
promote the podcast.
awesome. That's fun. Yeah, I actually I don't know if you've heard of Whoop Ass, the wrestling movie. I know people who are producing that movie, and I talked to them. They're gonna have a booth at WrestleCon, and I told them they should try to get one at Squared Circle Expo too. But yeah, it's basically a wrestling movie. There's a lot of people. Ken Anderson is the star of it,
Oh,
but yeah,
okay.
yeah, and there's also some other people involved. Nate Hewitt and his wife, Black Dahlia, Paige Collette, she's involved. So it
Yep.
looks like it's going to be a pretty cool movie once they get it up and going.
Sounds really cool to check that out.
Yeah, definitely. Have you gotten a hold? Have you talked to Paul Roma at all?
Paul who?
Paul Roma? Do you know who he is? He was a wrestler
I'm
from the
afraid not.
80s and 90s. He was one of the Four Horsemen, but he's actually going to be coming on our podcast pretty soon. So
That name sounds familiar.
yeah, yeah, he was not a big star, but you know, well enough that people from that era know who he is. I was just wondering because I know that him and Rhino are both looking to be on podcasts here, so I was just wondering if you had a chance to talk to Paul. 'Cause
I have not.
he's an interesting guy. He's got a really interesting history in wrestling. So
Hmm, that's really cool.
yeah, yeah. So who would you say has been your favorite guest? Do you have a favorite guest?
Well, I would have to say it was been Mick Foley because watching him.
Yeah.
And then my other favorite's Temple Grandin, probably the biggest autism advocate out there.
Hmm.
And her story is got diagnosed, got institutionalized because wasn't familiar at the time span, 60s or 70s, you can imagine.
Oh yeah.
And once they were still in the transition phase, it still wasn't really accepted.
Right.
But you can learn a lot from her, and she knows
Yeah.
why those people on the spectrum struggle with what they struggle with.
Sure.
Because
Sure.
there's a
Sure.
reason behind it. I bet there's a reason why you wash your hands.
Oh yeah. I'm sure there is. I mean, the only thing so one of the biggest things about OCD that people don't understand is that there's consequences. Like when when you don't follow through on the behavior in your mind, there's consequences. And I will actually feel like if I touch something that I'm unfamiliar with and I don't wash my hands as soon as I can, that my hand is going to fall off. Like I will literally feel it like loosening. Like it's, and that's not going to happen. I logically know that, but my brain is telling me that if I don't hurry up and wash my hands as soon as I can, that my hand is going to come off of my arm. And that, and that's what people don't understand about OCD, I don't think, is that the consequences that your brain comes up with can be really extreme. And even if you know that it's not true, you can't help it. Like it just that's how you feel in that moment. And it's a
That's how
tough
those on the spectrum get too.
yeah,
They get so focused in on something, the anxiety can become crippling.
sure, sure.
And it's literally like OCD anxiety.
Yeah. Before
Because
I
that's all that
got
your mind's thinking about. Because those on the spectrum in particular like to stick with something for a long time.
yeah,
So their mind is stuck on it, and that's all they want to talk about.
yeah.
Now, in our brain, we call it practicing for future skills. That's what Autism Rocks and Rolls believes, but other people call it obsessing.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. When I before I got on medicine, and honestly, like medicine's the only thing that has helped me. So people can be resistant to it. I was really resistant to it, but at the end of the day, that's what helped me. All the counseling that I got, all the inpatient stuff that they did, none of it really helped until I got on medicine. Before I got on medicine, I was basically stuck in a bed for 2 years when my OCD got to the point where I couldn't deal with it anymore. And thankfully, I had really good friends who I consider family, to be completely honest, who helped me through it. Even if they didn't understand what was happening, they supported me, and they knew I was going to get better, and that was the cool part too. Like nobody was like, "This is your life forever," They were like, "Eventually, you're going to get through this, and when you do, we're going to have a good time," So that was,
Yeah, my family was like that. My family was like, all right, here's the deal. He's got autism. Let's see what it is. And you
yeah,
know what? We're going to support him no matter what because I'm not going to be a bad parent. Ditch him on the side of the road.
right, yeah,
I
for
love
sure,
him still. He's my son or
yeah.
my grandson or my nephew or whatever relation they have to me.
Yeah, and the support system is really important when you're going through anything, but especially a mental health issue that you can learn to cope with and learn to live with, but is essentially going to be there for the rest of your life. It's really important to have a support system. Going through that kind of stuff on your own, it can
That's why it
be,
baffles me with society why people are still resistant with autism. The numbers are growing.
yeah.
I don't know the stats of OCD, but if I had to guess, the numbers are growing.
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah,
The numbers with
absolutely.
mental health are growing.
Yep.
So quit fighting it. It's going to
Right.
be there. You can't run from this fight. There's going to be
Right.
more people being born with mental health issues.
Absolutely. And some of that is education and identification. I think people are nowadays are more attuned to what is a mental health issue and what is just a habit or a behavior. Like I said, when I grew up in the 70s, 80s, and 90s, very early 90s, people didn't identify that. You know what I mean? We were just kids who didn't fit into society were ostracized even further, as opposed to let's understand them, let's figure out what's going on, and let's integrate them. I'm glad the integration is the goal now. It seems like and support, that's important. It's so important. Like we did a really cool interview. You were speaking about people with autism having some special skills and stuff. We did a really cool interview. It actually is the longest one we ever did. We had to break it into two parts with Rags Morales, who is one of the greatest living artists. He's a comic book artist, and he has autism. And he kind of talked about how autism influenced his art. And it was a really cool conversation to have. Like Rags is a really talented guy. So I mean, if you don't think that people with autism can contribute, then you're wrong. And there's people out there proving it every day, you know?
I agree. I 100% agree. My friend right now who's on the spectrum has a
Uh-huh.
job
Right.
and works. So they believe in him and gave him a job as a dishwasher.
Awesome.
Now, for some, that might be like, really, a dishwasher? Come on.
Whatever.
Are you kidding me? For some with mental health issues and disorders, that's enough.
Yeah.
Success, in my view, and my podcast belief, doesn't have a full picture of success. What I'm
Right.
trying to say here is it's not a full picture of you get a house, you get married, you have kids, you go get the mail every day, you own a nice limo, maybe you got
Hmm.
to start the Hollywood Walk of Fame. It's basically like rich people live
Yeah.
or the middleman live.
Right.
I don't believe that's everybody. For some, it could be not owning a home. Maybe
Right.
they don't have any children. Maybe they have a dog. Or maybe because they're in a wheelchair, they don't get the mail every day.
Yeah.
It's not like they're not contributing.
Yep. I think that success is happiness. I think that if you find happiness, even if it's not sustained happiness, because it's hard to find sustained happiness, but I think the moments where you're happy, then you're succeeding. That's what I think. Um, that's what life is about to me, like finding moments of joy and treasuring them. You know, that's success to me. But one of the things I know that it gets a lot of disrespect because the CEO apparently did some shady things, but Goodwill really is helpful for people on the spectrum with hiring and education and things like that. I mean, I think Goodwill is a pretty great organization as far as things like that. What are your thoughts on that? Do you
Well, I'm not gonna. I actually don't know about the CEO situation,
Sure.
so that's new information for me.
Yeah.
But from my experience, and I can only tell you through mine, a couple of my board members actually also have a job at Goodwill.
Yeah. Yeah.
And again, Goodwill's taking them under their wing.
Yep.
So despite the situation, which I may have to look into because I have no information about it,
Right.
I will say from my view, again, only mine,
Yep.
Goodwill has done good
Yeah.
for those with autism.
Yeah, I would 100% agree. Like for this I guess basically Goodwill is supposed to be a nonprofit, but the guy who runs it has like a really nice house and a really nice boat and some things like that. And so people have accused him of misappropriating funds, but it's never actually been proven, I don't think. So the way that I look at it is Goodwill helps the community so much. They're one of the few jobs that actually looks for people with disabilities, with mental health issues first. You know, those are the people that they want to hire. They want to get them out into the workforce and get them working and feeling good about themselves. And I think that's awesome, personally. I love Goodwill and I will always
Oh,
support
I
the
agree,
company.
buddy.
Yeah.
I 100% agree. And that CEO situation, my thought is he makes boatloads of money.
Right.
He's
He
not
did
allowed to spend some for himself.
right. And he did start a
What?
company, you know, I
He
mean
did
he
start a company that's
yeah,
doing really well for itself.
right.
And I know the rules with nonprofits. I get that.
Yeah.
And if I had to guess, I don't know him, but I bet he's still following the rules.
Right. Of course he is.
Why
Yeah.
not do a little on yourself? Heck, with my nonprofit I make some money with it. Not
Right.
all of it goes back into my nonprofit. I spend it on groceries and adulthood.
Yeah.
Why am I not getting in trouble then?
Right, right. I worked for a nonprofit organization, and the thing about a nonprofit organization is a certain amount of that money can be designated to salaries because not everyone is going to volunteer. Not everyone is going to be able to do things for free. You know, so as long as what he's designating as his salary is within the limits of what he's allowed to do, let him do it. Goodwill is a great organization that really, really helps communities. And and I applaud what they do, honestly. So so I think we're gonna talk now about how people can find you on the internet. Like I know that you have a Facebook and things of that nature, but what's the website? I know I went to the website and I know there's a lot of cool information on there. People can book you for events and things like that.
Well, you
But
can find me on your favorite media platform. You can find me on autismrocksandrolls.com. I'm not a hard guy to find. If you Google me or search engine optimization, something will pop up. I'm not a hard guy to locate
awesome. And
on
what's
the
your
interweb. I know there's some people who it's like, and but it's like, oh, one click, you're good to go.
yeah, yeah. And what's your event schedule like right now? Are you pretty open for people having you come out and do things, or I know it's harder to
As
travel in
of
the winter.
now, I am open. What I do know, oh, I didn't realize you were done. My bad for interrupting you.
Oh no, you're fine. Yeah,
Um, so to answer your okay, to answer your question though, it's pretty open, but I know there's gonna be some stuff cut that are just irons in the fire. It's just I don't know the dates.
sure.
For example, in April, I know we have our gala. It's an annual gala, fourth one this year.
Awesome.
Then in summertime, we usually have a summer concert with a local Midwestern band, the Hair Bangers, that are in Chicago, but they tour
Yeah.
around the Midwest. A motorcycle poker run that's always goes down in August of 2025 and yearly. We
Okay.
also sell food at our local pumpkin patch. What I do know as far as speaking gigs is, and this one isn't confirmed, it's highly likely though, we're just working out the negotiations, is on February 11th, I'll be going to Columbus, Ohio,
Mm,
potentially, to
okay.
speak to HR people who are looking for workforce, employment's the theme really.
Okay.
My goal is to talk about why should you hire those on the autism spectrum.
Absolutely. So when you go to these speeches, and you go and give these talks, how much of it is stuff that you come up with and you structure, and how much of it do you have outside help with? Because I'm sure there are people who help you gather information
My
and
mother
things like
helps me
that.
a lot.
Yeah, awesome. So it's just, but it's you and your mom. I mean, that's
Yeah,
pretty
it's my
awesome.
mom.
Awesome,
It's
man.
because of a team effort, and I just don't have the time to really look into it as much
Right.
as I want to. I want to look into it more. It's just it's hard with college because that's where I'm currently not at, but I'm studying broadcasting. I'm in my last semester though, so maybe I'll get some more time. But
Awesome.
what I try to speak though is depending on the theme of the conference. So this one that I might do in February is going to be about working because that's what they want. They want to hear about work.
Right.
Okay, cool. But what I've done before, I'm probably not going to talk about work as much. For example, I did an education conference in July of mm, last year in Orlando, and they don't want to hear about work. They want to hear about the education side of autism
Sure.
and my story.
Yeah.
Okay, we try to fit with what they want.
Nice. And I mean, that's good. Like that you can adjust and adapt to pretty much any situation. That's pretty awesome. And the fact that it's you and your mom, I mean, that's impressive because there are people who would have a team writing it for them. But I mean, you and your mother, I mean, that's a family member who knows you probably better than anyone, and that's awesome. I mean, it's good to
It
have,
has its good days and its bad days,
yeah.
but it's like family. Some days you want to throw them away, but then some days you want to keep them.
Right, right. So, you were saying that you got an interview coming up at 4 o'clock. Can you talk about that at all? What do you got coming up right now?
Well, it's not really an interview as much an idea I'm thinking. So I thought of the problem I'm having lately is there's a lot of people want to be on my show, and
Sure.
it's a good problem, clearly.
Yeah.
But I want to make everybody happy.
Okay.
That's just something I want to try. So a while back ago, I saw on Facebook there's these two guys, and they what they do is they go on and steal their podcast and talk about the topic somehow. They get knowledge with it, their thoughts on your show,
Hmm.
and more information. I
Sure.
didn't like that, but I like the idea of, oh, I could use this somehow for more content, but I
Right.
didn't know how until now. So my idea is I call mine podcast Autism Rocks and Rolls podcast hijack. So what this
Okay.
guest does is I'm like, all right, here's the guest. Here's some little information about them. Guest Billy Bob, take her away. Which means they'll talk about their affiliation with autism, their side of mental health, what their beliefs are of it, and just give like a full presentation.
Awesome. Awesome. That's an interesting
And it was
idea.
just a way to get me. It was just a way for me to get more content too.
Sure. Yeah. I'm actually going to diversify a lot this year. So we're going to be doing a lot of different kinds of content, which I think it's necessary. You got to grow and you got to change to keep people interested. So, but I
Yeah,
would
and that's
love
one
to.
of the struggles I stink at too is routine changes,
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. Routine changes can be rough. I was
but not as
actually,
much as I used to be. If I went to Walmart
mm,
and I didn't know about before school ended, it would be a complete meltdown. But now I'm like,
wow.
okay,
Yeah. Yeah. I struggle with the routine too. I like to have things going the way that they're supposed to go. It's definitely a problem if it happens. And not being able to find stuff. If I can't find something, holy mackerel, it just throws me into a spiral where I'm just walking in circles. But it's just stuff we have to deal with, man.
I
Um,
got too bad ADHD to keep track of anything.
yeah, yeah. That's one thing I don't have, thankfully. So, um, but I would love to have you come back on the show after the Royal Rumble and hear what you thought of it, man. I think that'd be a great podcast to get your thoughts on being at the Royal Rumble live and everything.
Yeah, sure. I'm more than happy to do that. I might be in
Awesome.
my college dorm, but
Hey,
I can still do it. I got internet access.
sweet, sweet. So we'll set that up, man. Um, but I think we're gonna go ahead and close out right there. Sam, thank you so much for coming on. This has been fun. It's been educational. I hope that the fans of the podcast have enjoyed our conversation. Um, Again, you can check Sam Mitchell out at Autism Rocks and Rolls. He's on all the different social media platforms. I want to thank my producer, Tyler Martin, and Emmy Studios. Always. Um, Thank you for hauling the mobile studio out in the snow so we can look good and sound good. Uh, and everybody be safe out there. Enjoy the rest of your week, and we will catch y'all next week with more Most Excellent Entertainment Podcast.